to two slides.
Good morning and welcome to the MILA Resources PLC investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and could be submitted at any time via the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Simply type in your questions and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company can review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so. Before we begin, I'd like to submit the following poll. And I'd now like to hand you over to Mark Stevenson, Executive Chairman. Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning. Today we'd like to focus on our Queensland assets, which we've been working on now for over a year. And they're very important for us as a company because we found them and they fit the criteria we were looking for an asset in a good jurisdiction, a top jurisdiction that we found. Queensland's just a really good jurisdiction. It's got discoverable ounces for us that we can produce very easily. We're fully funded for this next campaign. We've been working on this now for 2 years, and we're just in a strong jurisdiction. MILA was set up 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago, but a year ago, we really came across this asset, which we bought from EMX Capital, or we're in the process of buying it from EMX Capital. Our first round of drilling campaign, which was very successful, has enabled us to fit the criteria to take up the option, which we haven't done yet, but we are fully funded now for the second phase of drilling, which Alistair is going to explain in a moment, that will take us forwards. The area of Queensland we're in is surrounded by substantial mining companies, and we think we can really unlock the value of these assets. They've got very good potential, and with the expertise that we've got in our team, I think we can unlock this value, and we're really focusing on trying to keep the discoverable ounces, or the cost per dollar of the discoverable ounces, as low as possible. Could you go to the next slide, please, Alistair? So actually, this is taking Alistair will now explain exactly what our drilling campaign is coming into.
Good. Okay, thank you, Mark. Just a refresh for people who've seen these assets before and anyone new. From EMX, we basically took the option for 3 licenses: Monal in the north, Mount Stedman to the south, near to the Mount Rawdon mine, and Yarrell project in the centre. All 3 had historic non-JORC compliant licenses on them and had a good level of exploration previously completed. Our focus was Yarrell, where in the kind of mid-90s, a couple of 30,000, 40,000 ounce shallow gold deposits from surface were defined, but where since then very limited work had been undertaken. The initial hard work of finding mineralization had been completed, but then it had just flown under the radar for a number of reasons for the last 25 years, really. And systematic modern exploration methods had not been applied to it. So upon reviewing these projects, and Yarrell in particular, we saw a clear opportunity there for MILA to take an option on them, advance them, and realise some real value where others had perhaps missed it. Now, Yarrell, the reason we liked it, on the right you can see the historic drill results, and the yellow polygons are where there were historic resources defined, again from surface down to about 80 meters. There were multiple wide and good high-grade hits within these old resources, but just by nature, the exploration happened in the early 90s, and it was a different market back then, and the initial discovery was never pursued. And since then, other operators have maybe had a bit of a scratch at it, or the most recent operator actually focused on a cobalt piece of mineralization within the license and didn't really get into the gold so much as well. So when we reviewed this data, we thought it looks good and there's a clear potential there and there's real upside. Like I said, the resources defined were shallow, 50, 60 meters, but there were intercepts down to 150 meters already in that historic database, which just hadn't been followed up. So there was a clear path for us to test this, validate it, and realize value. So that led us to our phase 1 drilling and our phase 2 drilling, which is about to kick off, which I'll speak about shortly. As Mark's mentioned, the reason we like these assets is they're in a good part of the world. Obviously, Australia is probably the most famous mining destination in the world anyway. It's the jurisdiction we like. But within Queensland and kind of just across the border in South Australia, there are many examples of great deposits which have made a good amount of money in the past or operating now at very decent margins with lower grade material, kind of down to 0.9 grams per ton of ordnance in places as well. Still making very decent operations which have been profitable for a long time. For us, obviously, we've kind of got Yarrow at the top, and annual production head grade is where we're trying to drive towards to, and exploration is where we're at. But just for comparison, Krakow, which is about 50 kilometers to the west of us, is a very solid operation as well, about 25,000 ounces a year at a very decent grade. A couple of million ounces are defined in that deposit over the period of its life, and they're still exploring there. Gympie, historical mine, kind of again, just in the neighborhood. Closed back in the 1920s, but produced a lot of gold for a long time. And Cal, obviously, south over the borders, Evolution's kind of flagship asset at the moment, and is producing a lot of gold. Obviously, that's where everyone would like to get to, but it just shows to us that it's the neighborhood's right, the geology's right. Everything is there's a lot of positives for us taking on these assets and advancing them. As a direct comparison to Krakow, which is probably the closest kind of operating mine to us with similar geology, just to show on the left here, this image is a kind of Krakow footprint for their the deposit and their mined area. It's about 4 kilometers wide, about the same long. And on the right is our kind of Yarrow, central Yarrow license with all the historic kind of intercepts and gold mining areas we have within that. Yarrow is where the historic resources are, but we have other confirmed gold mineralization intercepts at Limestone Creek and Magpie. This is the cobalt where previous operators got a bit distracted. But the structure and just the regional kind of mineralization intercepts make us confident that while we're focusing on Yarrow Central at the moment to develop the resources there, there's plenty of upside along this structure to really add ounces. Again, why are we confident Yarrow could be the next kind of key discovery in Queensland? Well, the proven model of mineralization is for us appealing for us as well. It's very similar to Krakow and Gympie. Our initial exploration in phase 1 proved that our mineralization model holds up. There's nothing too scary there yet. And we were able to predict with relative confidence where we were going to hit gold mineralization, and that proved out. So growing confidence in what we're dealing with. The fault itself then covers a strike length of 20 kilometers, and only about 4 kilometers of that has actually been tested, of which the resources sit in about 2 kilometers of that. So there's very clear upside there just from systematic, focused exploration. Also, we have some high-grade zones, which means we're not reliant on kind of a mass and huge tonnage of low-grade material. We get some very good high-grade material over wide intercepts. Some of those came up obviously in our phase 1 drilling, and in the historic database, there's plenty of evidence for them as well. Our initial modeling shows that it follows a kind of an established pattern of a high-grade core to this deposit with wider, lower-grade material around the outside. So again, the geological model is hanging together, and we're confident on our exploration process. As mentioned, there's lots of good things in Yarrow, like the geology works, the jurisdiction works, but modern exploration hasn't been systematically applied to it for 25, 30 years. There's a clear gap there where we can come in and update things like the geophysics, which we've obviously issued updates on. Simple thing on that one is you can see the difference in resolution between 30-year-old geophysics and what we're working with now. Where guys back in the early 90s might have drilled and puzzled about why they'd missed something, we can look at our data and understand exactly what is going on and explain what's happening with the structure in a much greater confidence. So that's already helping us. and makes us more efficient with our drill programs. And we have a clear path forward. As I said, we did our phase 1 drilling just to validate those historic intercepts and give us confidence. And now we have that confidence. We're pushing forward aggressively, but confidently towards a maiden resource, which is why the drill rig has just rolled onto site. So our focus on the exploration rollout at Yarrell. Well, phase 1 for us is what we've completed. That was us saying we believe in the potential of this deposit, but we need to go and prove it to ourselves and obviously our shareholders. So we did that phase 1 drilling to validate historic intercepts, but also test a couple of new areas and see if we can start bolting on, hopefully, ounces to these historic resources and really show some scale to it. Phase 2, which is where we're at now, which is where we're basically filling in the gaps and expanding out beyond that historic footprint. Our aim now is to push this towards a resource. That's obviously where we start realizing value and showing we have strong assets within MILA. And phase 3, obviously, the prize is to actually develop this into a really appealing mining project. Extending the resources out where we're drilling at the moment, but also bringing online those other targets as well. They're really the answers we have in the books. A quick recap of our phase 1 drilling. On the right, you can see our image here in the red dots where we put some holes in to check these historic intercepts and test a few areas as well. And on the left, some of our key intercepts. Every hole we drilled hit gold mineralization, with some hitting some obviously very good grade materials such as 197, 17 meters at over 5 grams a ton, and some extremely kind of higher grade hits mixed within those as well. Obviously, it's just a selection of a couple of holes here as opposed to all of them, but yeah, they gave us a real confidence that there's something here. We're getting a grip on the geology, and we can be more aggressive with this. And there is true upside. The guys in the 90s did good work. They did the hard work for us, but they then only scratched the surface of this. Which brings us to where we're at now. Following that phase 1 drilling, we have the confidence that there is a resource for the taking here, and not a small, 30, 40,000 ounce resource. We are looking kind of in the hundreds, hopefully. So we then have to push forward with proving that. So our phase 2 work now is testing the extensions of these mineralized zones, defines ounces, and starting the path to systematically convert this discovery into a district scale resource. First up, what we had done in the last couple of months is just review our data, make sure we have every kind of angle covered, and what we're going to do with the drilling is efficient and as high quality as possible. We had RSC, reasonably well-known consultants in Australia, New Zealand, and globally now, have a look at the historic data, our new data, and just validate our thinking. And they came back and said, yeah, we agree with your thoughts on this. There's clear potential there, and there's nothing, again, too scary in this. The grade is reasonably kind of well-behaved, and a systematic drilling campaign should be able to unlock this. Following that, we have the land access agreements with the stakeholders who we have a very good relationship with, and drilling scheduled to commence shortly. I mean, the rig is on site, so shortly is basically imminent. And phase 2 fully funded into next year for us to get this done. Our plan is to have diamond drilling initially, which is the rig that's on site, just to give us some more structural control, give us some more geological info, and then give us the framework upon which we're going to follow in behind with RC drilling and a significant number of meters to build up that initial resource. Again, this shows our updated geophysics and this extension we had in the last couple of months to the south with new targets appearing. These high-grade zones are essentially associated with intrusions, and the gold occurs alongside the contact zone of those intrusions. So we will develop these a bit further as well, and these are just some of the hits from within our phase 1 drilling. Good quote from Mark there, which is the next phase is a pivotal step forward as we build on the success of our initial program. He said phase 1 gave us a confidence, and phase 2 is where we really step beyond the historic work and actually try to build this out into a significant resource. Taking us through our timeline, obviously at Q1 we did our target definition at Yarrell and did that updated mag survey. Q2 is when we did our phase 1 drilling and had some very encouraging intercepts. Q3, we've basically been kind of getting our data in order, getting our access agreements sorted and filling any other gaps we need, but also engaging with people like RSC to make sure the work we're doing is high standard. We're not going to get tripped up in the future, and we can be as efficient with this as possible. and in terms of time and expense, of course. And then Q4, where we're at now, which is the exciting stage where we have the rigs rolling into site, starting off with some diamond drilling within the next month, and then hot on the heels of that RC drilling to really kind of bulk out that initial resource, driving towards that updated kind of JORC standard resource at the start of next year. Meanwhile, not forgetting that we have the Mount Steadman and Monal licenses, which both have some very compelling targets within them themselves. The geological team we've just established out there will be starting to do some work on these targets as well, to really bring them along and develop that pipeline of assets for us. And obviously, I'll be out at site next week, reviewing the drilling and getting stuck into the regional work as well. The appendix of this presentation, if anyone wants to access it, has a bit more info. Obviously, there's Mount Steadman to the south and the background of that one. Again, with historic mining and resource defined on that. Again, we are going to update the geophysics and do some regional work to develop the potential of this one. And Monal itself, we obviously did our reconnaissance last year on this one and found some extremely encouraging grab samples around historic mining areas. So we just need to, again, bring these modern exploration methods to play on this license. And we see a lot of potential here, some hopefully high grade gold mineralization and also some strong showings of copper up there as well. So there's real potential in both the other licenses, which we're not forgetting. Obviously, Kathleen Valley, existing asset, which we continue to try and progress. And yeah, that is us for today. That concludes our part of our presentation.
Mark, Alistair, thank you very much for your presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions just by using the Q&A tab situated on the top right-hand corner of your screen. Just while the company take a few moments to review those questions submitted today, I'd like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboard. Mark, Alistair, as you can see, we have received a number of questions throughout today's presentation. Can I please ask you to read out the questions and give responses where appropriate to do so, and I'll pick up from you at the end.
Great, thank you. Okay, Mark, I'll give this first one to you if that's all right. It's have you had any approaches to acquire or JV your assets at Kathleen Valley? If not, will you be marketing them?
Yes, I just want to assure the investors that we are working hard behind the scenes on our Kathleen Valley assets. It's not something I want to discuss at the moment, but hopefully over the next months, we'll be able to update you with what's going on with Kathleen Valley.
Great. Okay, next question. When can we expect to receive assays from your exploration in Queensland, and will you be seeking a partner to scale up exploration activity? I'm happy to take the first part of that. Yes, I mean, we're starting drilling now, so I won't give specific dates for receiving assays. You never know what the lab will do, or you can run into delays in the field. But essentially, between now and kind of November, end of November, people should be looking out for information from the diamond drilling and obviously the RC following that. We will obviously try and progress things as quickly, but as properly as possible. We're keen to get this data in as well, but we're going to make sure we do it right. And I could probably answer the second one for you, Mark. It's, would you be seeking a partner to scale up exploration activity? We're fully funded at the moment and we're doing what we need to do. Obviously, we're always open to conversations. I think Mark would probably say the same, but at the moment we're focusing on getting the work in the field done. Okay. What are the key risks that could delay or increase the cost of phase 2 drilling campaign? At the moment, I mean, a kind of massive shifts in the kind of, the exchange rate wouldn't be ideal, but I think we're pretty happy that we're in a good position. We've got a good contractor. They've done efficient work for us on the first phase of drilling. The ground is reasonably straightforward, and we've got good relations with the stakeholders and landholders as well. So there's kind of key flags or red flags or things that can delay drill programs. We don't have any of them here. Extreme weather, obviously, is something we can't control, but in terms of kind of human interference or cost, we're pretty happy that we're across everything.
Alistair, I would add on that we have actually moved the capital in place already into Australian dollars, so that takes any foreign exchange risk out of the current phase.
Yeah, very good. So yeah, we don't see any major risks, to be honest. get this to you one, Mark. Do you see potential for JV partnerships?
Down the road, but like I think Alistair said just now, we're fully funded for this phase. We've got a very strong investor base that's backed us for years now. I don't see any point in bringing anybody else in. We're not really looking to advance the asset in the short term to a resource of any size. We want to fully develop it for ourselves to extract the maximum value from it in the shorter term before we're opening up any information really to the wider community in that area.
Cool. Next one, will MILA be in a position to have data to evaluate all Australian exploration assets prior to agreement period end? I'm assuming that's basically the Queensland assets. From our point of view, we already have a lot of data on the assets, and we wouldn't have taken it this far if we didn't already like them. Obviously, Yarrell was our key focus, where we saw a lot of potential, but then obviously proving that the data is reliable gives us confidence in Manal and Stedman as well. We have been on the ground in Manal and Stedman as well, taking our own verification checks and grab samples and mapping structures. So we have a lot of confidence in these assets already. We're going to do a bit of work, and as I said, I'm heading out there next week to do a bit more, but we already have very strong confidence in these assets. This one for you, Mark. When does MILA expect to raise further funds?
I think, as we say, we are fully funded for this phase. We've kept our overheads, our corporate overheads are extremely low. Our G&A is kept to an absolute minimum. We really do focus on keeping our costs down to make sure that every penny that we've raised in the past goes into the ground. So we're very, very confident we're in a nice, strong position for the next phase of drilling. And, hopefully that will produce the results that enable us to decide where our future is going in the near future.
Cool. Next one. There looks to be a lot of holes drilled into Yarrell. How deep are they, and how much drilling do you need in those areas to create a resource? Yeah, this is one of the things we think drove people maybe overlooking this this prospect, is that if you look at that plan view I showed you of Yarrell, it looks like there's a lot of holes drilled into it. And in terms of drilled collars, there are a reasonable amount. When you actually start to interrogate the data, what you find is a lot of those were kind of speculative, kind of like early percussion holes, or a large majority were drilled in the wrong direction, so didn't intersect anything. And then the actual later holes in there, the RC ones which went into the initial resource, were actually kind of maybe 50% of those, if that. And those only on average went down to about 80 meters, with one or two kind of sunk down to kind of 150, and then some later holes by later operators, again, drilled in the wrong direction. So we saw that actually when we stripped out the noise from that data set, actually there was essentially one or two good kind of drill programs that had been done on this, and they'd had good success. But then those hadn't actually been followed up, which is why we liked it. So we thought actually we can see something here which maybe has been overlooked, and our phase one drilling backed us up on that. And in terms of meters we need to do, I think we can't say, look, we're doing about 1,600 meters of diamond here just to give us a framework, and then we'll follow up with a few thousand RC. In terms to fully develop the resource, there's a few drill programs to go yet, but to get us this initial resource, we're happy that the work we're doing between now and the end of the year will get us something decent. This one again, how soon should Yarrell results be available? Like I said, the rig's rolling in now. It just comes down to us processing, but look out for the next kind of couple of months. Same with this next one. When we do next expect some results from the phase 2 drilling. It said ASAP for us, as long as everything goes to plan, the lab's behaving. Okay, one for you, Mark, I think. Compared to peers, MILA looks heavily undervalued at 5 million market cap. Could you let us know your thoughts on our current value?
Well, I would totally agree with that statement. Compared to our peers, we've actually picked up from a pretty low level earlier in the year, or extremely low level, with the work we've been doing in Queensland. which I don't think has really been picked up just yet by the market fully. I think the drilling campaign that we get will start highlighting exactly what we think is in the ground there. And I think, there's obviously a lot of the questions have been looking at Kathleen Valley. I think if you look at the Australian companies, the larger ones, our neighbours, Bellevue Gold and Liontown, they've had very good runs on the Australian stock market based on obviously the gold price going up and the lithium price recovering somewhat as well. So there is interest in our Kathleen Valley assets, just because the market is stronger, but it is something that we are working on in the background, and hopefully we can be able to update people down the road.
That probably feeds into the next one for you, Mark, which is, where do you see the share price in 2026?
Well, we're clearly going to have the results from our phase 2 drilling, and I think the campaign that Alistair's planned is very straightforward. We're really maximising the historical workings and the drilling we've done already to expand along strike and at depth within an area that looks very promising from the geophysics. So I'm very confident that the stock market or the price will be substantially higher as long as the results come out, and we're trying to reduce the risk on that as much as possible.
Cool. Next question. At the moment, it all looks a bit bitty, if you know what I mean. Is this new campaign designed to fill in the gaps? Simple answer to that is yes, and I do understand what you mean. That kind of bittiness is that initial discovery, which was done in the 90s, and we validated that, and now we're moving beyond it. But yeah, we're looking for scale now, and the new program is designed to prove that the potential for that exists. Next question. Is there other work being done to produce news, and is that budgeted for? I guess this means kind of beyond Yarrow and the drilling. Obviously, the drilling is our headline news that we expect to come out. Intercepts are obviously what the market likes to see and what we like to see, because building resource is the end game of this. But we are obviously undertaking work in Manal and Mount Steadman as well, and those other areas within Yarrow, the wider Yarrow license. There are a pipeline of prospects for us to develop up to the drill ready stage, and we do plan to do some work to advance those as well. So obviously Yarrow is the focus, but we're not losing sight of the fact there's potential elsewhere within these licenses.
Yeah, I'd just add on to that our team is looking at it. It's all within the overheads that we've got already, with a junior geologist as part of our payroll now. It's so much more efficient than having a consultant just to come in and work on the projects. So we have got the team in place to start low-cost work across the whole projects.
Yep, I think that's a good summary. Our in-country team is there. It means we can just keep working constantly and not just do some kind of campaign, then wait, then campaign, then wait. This is kind of a constant, steady stream of work we want to get underway now and just keep ramping up.
Mark, Alistair, thank you for answering all those questions you can from investors. And of course, the company can review all questions submitted today and will publish those responses on the Investor Meet Company platform. Just before redirecting investors to provide you with their feedback, which I know is particularly important to the company, Mark, could I please just ask you for a few closing comments?
Okay, yeah, I would just like to reaffirm that we're fully funded for this phase. We've got our costs not under control, know exactly what we're doing to get through this phase, and we've got a clear plan to deliver value for shareholders. Thank
Mark,
you.
Alistair, thank you for updating investors today. Can I please ask investors not to close this session, as you'll now be automatically redirected to provide your feedback in order that the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, and I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of MILA Resources PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation, and good morning to you all.